If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560. The Answer.
Ooh, that's my Ice Cube to wake a brother up in the morning. That's what I'm talking about. Welcome back to Chicago's Morning Answer. I'm John Anthony filling in for Dan Prof. My show is heard every Saturday, 4 to 7 p.m. right here on these airwaves, and also the airwaves of Detroit, Michigan, 92.7 FM and AM 1400. The Answer as well. You know, I was watching some of the testimony that Supreme Court Justices Kagan and Amy Coney Barrett were giving up on the Capitol. I believe it was yesterday or the other day. The days just elude me right now. You know, I keep thinking about how these American institutions keep demanding public trust while resisting the transparency, the accountability, and the consequences required to earn it. I think about what the Supreme Court just did with birthright citizenship, and now Trump is readdressing the court to say, you may want to take another look at this. Look at what happened the moment you guys made that decision. What happened to John Roberts? What happened to Amy Coney Barrett? Now, I don't think, listen, no, I say this as an absolute. A person who's elected or someone who's a judge should never face any violence because of how they vote. I believe that with every fiber in me. That should never happen, and I completely and ultimately say that should never happen. Now, M.D. Kittle has spent nearly 3 decades covering government, courts, elections, political corruption, and the people who exercise power while claiming they are merely protecting institutions. He's the senior elections correspondent for the Federalist.com, which I frequently go to, and he previously served as executive director of Empower Wisconsin. He's recently talked about this Roberts Court's birthright citizenship, election integrity, and Republican inaction. So, M.D. Kittle, welcome to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Prof, John Anthony filling in.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you having me on the show.
Now, Matt, you wrote that the legacy of the Robert courts will be cowardice and incoherence. I think back to the Affordable Care Act, affectionately known as Obamacare. Cowardice is a serious accusation to make against the Chief Justice of the United States. What specifically do you believe John Roberts is afraid of?
I think John Roberts is afraid of the moment. He's afraid of the political whiplash that doing the right thing would cause. And that has defined much of his tenure as the Chief Justice of this court. You talked about Obamacare. I mean, he did absolute judicial legal gymnastics to make that thing work. And, of course, it hasn't worked for anybody. It's been a disaster. This is a guy who likes to take the middle ground, but the middle ground is going to be the death of the republic. Yeah. And so he is not an Alito. He is not a Thomas. He's not even a Gorsuch. So this is who America is stuck with for the rest of his life, whenever he wants to retire. I'm not saying he hasn't done some good things. The Dobbs decision immediately comes to mind, but there has been so much equivocation from this Chief Justice. You can't chalk it up to anything but cowardice.
Now, Matt, I remember sitting and watching his confirmation hearing. I remember him saying he described judges as umpires whose job is to apply the rules rather than make them call in balls and strikes. You argue that in the birthright citizen case, he effectively ignored the foul lines. When did John Roberts stop behaving like an umpire, and when did he begin behaving like a guardian of I like to call it institutional stability?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think that's a good way to phrase it. He does see himself as the protector of the institution. And the institution, as we know, for 100 plus years has been growing and growing and growing to a leviathan. And this Chief Justice has not recognized that fact in too many cases. I'm not saying he hasn't checked the growth of big government in some places, but that's that really defines John Roberts. He is an institutionalist. He is not an originalist, nor do I think he ever really claimed to be in the way that Clarence Thomas is.
Yeah. I mean, I went back and I read Senator Jacob Howard's original intent and meaning of what the 14th Amendment should have been. I mean, even Justice Alito and Justice Thomas, I think they had the most clear-headed level writings in their dissent. And I don't. How is it that Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett, who sided with the other side, how did they not see the national security perspective of this, or was that not part of the argument that was presented before them?
Yeah, well, the latter was a problem. I don't believe the Solicitor General did the job that he needed to do to present the argument. That said, these justices know what the arguments are. They know what the 14th Amendment says. Right. And I think John Roberts, again, is too interested in collegiality on a dysfunctional court to begin with than he is with national security. And that's a big problem.
You know, in your writings, you connect the birthright citizenship decision to Roberts' ruling in the Obamacare case, where he found a legal construction that preserved the law by treating the individual mandate as a tax. Are these, in your opinion, isolated decisions, or is this now a recognizable Roberts doctrine?
As far as birthright citizenship goes, I think that Brett Kavanaugh gave Congress an out.
Yeah.
So here it is. This is the sad part. Congress could save John Roberts and this court from John Roberts and this court. But, and of course, birthplace citizenship, because that's really what it is. There's no right to it, as we know by the 14th Amendment and how it's expressed. But no, I mean, that's the problem. They're depending on, and they should. They absolutely should. Congress should be doing its job. Congress abdicated its job a long time ago, unfortunately.
Yeah. And you think about those decisions, but we're also, the whole world is watching that the United States Senate, under the leadership of John Thune, just continuously kicking down the can, this Save America Act. I'm of the belief, Matt, that the moment Democrats take power, they are going to demolish the filibuster. And you've written repeatedly about the SAVE Act and the effort to require proof of citizenship to register for federal elections. What is the most important thing the public misunderstands about this legislation, the SAVE America Act?
Well, it is extremely important. It's an existential, and I know that word is bandied about in politics. There's so much hysteria, but this is indeed it. You have, and it's a package that really the vast majority of Americans want. It demands that you provide documentary proof of U.S. citizenship to vote in U.S. elections, and you have to register, and you have to have a photo ID. You have to have clean voter rolls. These are not difficult asks, and again, the people of Americans are asking for this. The problem we have is, to put it all in perspective, John Thune is the John Roberts of the Senate.
I love that. I'm going to start using that. You don't mind if I start using that, do you?
You go ahead. I want that communicated wherever we go. Don't mistake John Thune as, a protector of the Trump agenda, or even a protector of national security and individual rights.
Yeah. How important is this? I'm watching right now on Fox News and CNN the hearing for Todd Blanche to become the DOJ, to run, to head up the DOJ. How important is it for President Trump to really get his team into place? Think about this. He has a lot of people who are still running around with the interim term on their names. I mean, that's a travesty, and I think you call it a deficit of courage in the U.S. Senate, that President Trump still, to this day, does not have his full team. How important is this nomination of getting Todd Blanche? And I really do hope he's not part of the deep swamp, because every single person that President Trump has picked for this position has been terrible. I really hope he's not that guy. How important is it's him getting across the finish line and becoming the DOJ, heading the DOJ?
Well, I think it's critical, and I say that because I've talked to a number of people that I have a good deal of respect for, constitutional law experts, people who worked at the DOJ. I wrote a piece this week, 77 former DOJ high-ranking officials have said this is the right man for the right time. He already has shown himself to do what Pam Bondi would not.
Yeah.
And that is hold people accountable. We've got prosecutions for those connected with Jack Smith, who perpetrated crimes much more significant than Watergate when it comes to the weaponized Justice Department under Merrick Garland and in the Biden administration. This for accountability, for all things from fraud to the abuses of government in general, I think this is a critical nomination process.
And I'll tell you, Matt, that's the one thing that I hold out hope with him, because not only does he have prosecutorial experience, he also understands the department. But the fact that he personally represented President Trump through the lawfare campaigns, he understands this fight better than most of the people, even Bill Barr and all of these other people. And I think that's the one thing that I hold out hope. Am I wrong for holding out that hope that because he's seen this weaponization up close and he's seen how many of not just President Trump, but his family and his friends and all of those who are who've worked with this president in previous administration and this administration, and how the left will come after them and continue this weaponization? Am I wrong for still believing that and holding that hope out, that's why I can trust in this guy?
Not at all. I mean, when he was asked, as we were beginning this process by, the usual suspects on the left, will you be loyal to Donald Trump? He answered with one word: yes. The Justice Department needs to be independent. There is no doubt about that when it comes to the administration of justice. But we have Democrats out there confusing what they call weaponization for accountability. And America voted for many things, but toward the top of that list was accountability for an abusive Biden administration, the most corrupt administration, the auto pen presidency, as I like to call it. And there has to be accountability, or there will be so much less faith, if that's possible, in our government.
Yeah, I have always been a proponent of somebody of term limits. Because, you wrote that Mitch McConnell, he must explain his prolonged absence from the Senate or retire. Why is that a question of public accountability rather than private medical privacy?
Because it's a Senate rule. This was a guy who was the longest serving party majority leader,
And that's Senate Rule 6.
In the history of the Senate. If anybody should know the rules, it should be Mitch. I know Mitch has faltered over the last several years, but it shouldn't be a case where we don't know what's happening to this guy and if he's living in a shack with Elvis somewhere. They have to follow certain rules, and one of the rules is if you're going to be gone for an extended time, you need to seek permission from the Senate to do that. We have no evidence that ever happened. I still am very concerned about the state of Mitch McConnell's health and what that means moving forward. That's Senate Rule 6, which he should have known. I set you up for that one because I knew what you were going to say as it relates to the to the rule. But one last question, and I should have did this at the outset of the show. Lindsey Graham. He has his people who love him and people who hate him. What will be his legacy? I think his legacy for the left will, and I mean, I don't mean to answer for the left because who cares, but I think the left and corporate media and the leftist historians who write history will be that he became a loyalist for Trump. I think his legacy will be one of hard work and dedication to Congress. He has a lot of warts on his political record. He has done what has. I have heard, some good sources say there is no one in the world that Lindsey Graham cares about more than Lindsey Graham.
That's true.
And I have heard that on multiple occasions. So that also will be part of the legacy.
Yeah, I'm not one to believe the conspiracies that he died, what happened over in Ukraine. But I do find it strange that he called instead of 911, he called an aide to another senator. That was kind of weird, and I guess that is something that's Lindsey Graham. He would do something like that, from what I've been told from people who know him very close. But MD Kittle, go ahead.
I was just going to say it reminded me of that creepy show with Kevin Spacey a few years back.
Oh, what show was that? Come on now, you can't just do that and not name the show.
I know it, and I can't think of it. Yeah, he was House of Cards.
Oh yes. That. Hey, I lived through a lot of that House of Cards. But
man,
MD Kittle, senior elections correspondent for the Federalist. Thanks so much for joining us on Chicago's Morning Answer.
You got it. Anytime. Have a great day.
All right, you're the best. And he joined us on our Alpha Wealth Group text line. I keep getting that.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
2 years ago, Bobby Carpenter completed treatments for knee pain at QC Kinetics. So we're checking in with the former college and pro football player to see how he's doing.
I've been asked a lot, how long does this last? How long does it work? I go, I've had mine for a couple years and everything feels